Alright, so I'm going to show you how to write the code to make a motor run while you are pressing the button and stop when you let go of the button. The first thing we're going to need to do is set up one button and one motor. I always name in test scenarios like this, I call my motor motor 1 and my button button 1, but again you can pick whatever you want as long as it's a 393 motor and a touch sensor for your button. Okay, I've got that done. Now I need to make sure I have task main. Alright. Now this should automatically set up for you. Now, what we want to do is we want the motor to start when you press a button. And we also want the motor to stop when the button is released. Okay, so we got our pseudocode in here. We just need to make this happen. Now, another thing that we want in this case is we want this to be repeatable. We want to be able to press the button, start the motor, let go of the button, stop the motor, and then be able to press the button again. So we need a loop in here. So we're going to insert a infinite while loop. And to do that, we just use the while statement and put in the word true. Then we need an opening and a closing curly brace. And now we've got it so that everything in between this opening and curly brace is going to repeat. Now, I'm going to take a moment to explain exactly how while loops work. The way they work is as soon as the program gets to this while statement, it is going to check if the thing inside of these parentheses is true. If it is, it will go through the while loop in order from beginning to end until it gets to the closing curly brace of the while loop. Then it will return to the top and check this statement again to see if it is true. If it is true, it will go through again and repeat and repeat. If it is false, it will skip the loop and go to whatever is written after the closing curly brace of that while loop. Now in this case, instead of putting in something that could become false, we've just stuck in the word true. So we've made this so that this loop will repeat infinitely. It will never become false, so it will always repeat. Okay, that's important because we want this program to repeat forever so that it keeps working as long as the power is on. Alright, so now what we want to do is start the motor when you press a button. Now, we could use like an Untitled Touch command, and that would certainly start the motor when the button is pressed. However, what we want to do is not start the motor when a button is pressed and then stop it when it's pressed again. We want the motor to run while the button is pressed, so while you have your finger on it. Now what we need to do then is figure out how can we know if the button is being pressed. Well, for that we're going to use this SensorValue command. Now the SensorValue command is a very simple piece of code, and it looks just like this. And what you do is you put inside these parentheses, you put the name of the sensor that you want to check the value of. Now, the only sensor we have here is a button, which is a touch sensor. And a button can only have one of two possible values. It can be either pressed, which is going to be a value of 1 in computer language, or not be pressed, which is going to be a value of 0 in computer language. Okay, so if we put in button 1, what this whole thing is going to do is it's going to check the value of this sensor. If the sensor is being pressed, this is going to change from SensorValue button 1 into just the number 1. Okay. If the button is not being pressed, this is going to change into a 0. Now, how is that helpful? Well, remember when I said that in the while loop, we need to check if the thing inside the parentheses is true or not? Well, we can very easily change this from, a number into a statement by adding this. Now what we're saying is, hey, let's check that button. If it's being pressed, this should turn into a 1, and 1 equals 1 is a true statement. If the button is not pressed, this will become 0, and 0 equals 1 is now false. So this is what we can use in our next while loop. We're just going to insert while SensorValue of button 1 is equal to 1. We want to do this next while loop. And what we'll do is just put in here a start motor command. Now you'll notice I'm not going to put a stop motor command, because what we want to have happen is we want this loop to continue. Now, if the button is being pressed, the motor will start, it'll go here, go back to the top of this while statement, check if the button is being pressed. If it is, it'll send the start motor command again, which won't matter if the motor is already running. Now, if the button is not being pressed and this becomes 0, this statement will become false and this while loop will not run and it will skip to the next thing. Well, the next thing that we want is we want the motor to stop. Alright, now we've got it. I'm going to fix the formatting here to make it look pretty. Alright, so here's how this code is going to work. As soon as you turn the robot on, we're going to enter into this infinite while loop, which will start here and end here, and then repeat back to the top again. The first thing it's going to do in this infinite while loop is check this statement. If the button is being pressed, this statement will be true and it will send the start motor command. Then it will go back to the top of this statement and check again. This will continue, between 10,000, 100,000 times every second until you let go of the button, in which case this will become false. We'll skip this command and go to this one, which is a stop motor. That's going to do exactly what we want. Once you release the button, we stop the motor. Then we'll go back to the top of this infinite while loop and check the button again. If the button is being pressed, we'll enter this loop and start the motor. If it's not being pressed, it'll send the stop motor command again, which won't matter if the motor is already stopped. It'll stay stopped. Alright, so this is how to use your while statement and the sensor value to write a program that will turn the motor on while a button is being pressed and turn the motor off when you release the button.